Hello, my name's Ajay and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Today we're privileged to be joined by Professor Lakshman Perera. Professor Lakshman was born in Sri Lanka and has had a long and distinguished career. As an academic, he was a professor of history at the University of Colombo and also a senior fellow at the School of Oriental and Asian Studies in London. Currently, he is a member in the Council for Education in the Commonwealth and a member of the Royal Commonwealth Society. Professor Lakshman, thank you very much for joining us on The Defining Moment.
It's a pleasure to come and meet you.
First of all, I would actually like to take this opportunity to ask you and to invite you to share with us a defining moment from your life.
Well, regarding meditation, I did practice meditation when I was Christian and a member of the student Christian movement. But meditation at that time meant for me just reading the Bible and thinking about it and visualizing things. But meditation, I've come to realize, is something somewhat different from that. It is, in the Buddhist and Hindu traditions, it is the practice of mantra mainly, and it is where you repeat a mantra regularly and you pass into a different state of consciousness. It is sometimes described as an altered state of consciousness by the psychologists, but Buddhists and Hindus will call it samadhi, a state of being where everything is different from the ordinary state of being, and that is meditation.
And how did you come across meditation in your life?
I came across that form of meditation when I came to England in 1973, and I happened to live somewhere in Kilburn, and I came across quite by chance the Transcendental Meditation Group. It was an office there, and because of my curiosity about religious things and spiritual things, I went and asked them what it was, and they explained to me. And they also said that if I want to know more about it, I could come and meet one of their teachers, which I did. And she explained further what transcendental meditation was, and it was basically the repetition of a mantra which they give us. And she said that for about 3 months, once you're included in a group, you have to come regularly and explain what is happening to you, to your teacher. What they recommended was that for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening, you should sit quiet, cross-legged, and repeat a mantra that they give you. And this I did regularly for about 3 months, and I noticed certain changes that came about. A sense of peace and calm that gradually arose. It comes and goes, but then it is always there. And the other is that you have sort of your stream of thoughts in your mind, where you keep thinking of various things that you have to do, what you have done, and so on. All that is lost, and your mind becomes just blank, in the sense that it is only repeating the mantra. Now that is the basic pattern. And then later I discovered, because of my study of various religions, I came to know about Hinduism and Buddhism when I was lecturing on Buddhist, on Indian religions and Sri Lankan history. Then I came to know that in all the religions there is at some point the practice of mantra.
Can you explain for us, for viewers who perhaps are not familiar with the name or the term mantra, what is a mantra?
The word mantra has several meanings. Some people think it's a kind of a spell, but it is not a spell. It is a repetition of a religious form of words. And I'll just explain to you in terms, and you will understand it when I give the mantras in the various religions. In Hinduism, you get people who worship Krishna, they repeat Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. That is theirs. If you are Shaivite, worshipping Shiva, you would say Shivoham, 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 and that means that you are one with Shiva. You are Shiva. And if you go to in Christianity also, there are practices of that kind of mantra, especially in the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church. In the Catholic Church, if you go to any Catholic church here in England or anywhere, you'll find people who go and repeat the rosary, and the rosary about worship of the Virgin Mary. And they repeat, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. And they have a rosary, a string of beads, which they keep on repeating. Then if you go, sometimes when you go in the tube, you see these Muslim people sometimes also have that kind of repetition of a mantra. And the people who do that are largely the Sufis, not the ordinary Muslims. But the Sufis are not separate, they are part of Islam, but they are very secretive in what they do. If you go to a Sufi group, you can't go openly, you have to ask their permission when see them. And you see the women and men sit separately, and then they sort of repeat a mantra, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
God is great.
God is great, God is great. And then after that they repeat, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. There is only one God, and that's Allah. And that becomes for them a mantra. So in all the religions, you get this form of repetition of a mantra. Mantra is a religious form of words, not a long sentence, but a small group of words, which the repetition of which enables you to eliminate from your mind a string of thoughts and enter a period of peace and calm.
So that was the defining moment for you, discovering a mantra that
yes.
Even to this day you're
Before
chanting?
that, I thought of mantra in terms of thinking about some passage in the Bible and meditating on it, meditating in the sense of thinking about it. But meditation in the religious spiritual sense is not thinking about things, is letting go of thinking.
Okay, so moving on from that, I think that's a very good point at which we can now look at meditation itself. What is your understanding of the practice of meditation in the world's religions?
It is not practiced by ordinary people. It's practiced only by those who are interested in the spiritual life. People who sort of desire to enter the spiritual life and then go up and up in your spiritual life. Ordinary Buddhists, ordinary Christians, and ordinary Hindus and so on, they are not that much. They are more interested in worship of God, and prayers, and asking for help in trouble and things like that. Now that is different, and that is what's religion at the common sense, at the ordinary level. What came to my mind regarding when I thought of these various practices is that the spiritual life can be compared to a huge mountain, which there is at the right at the top, and at the bottom and of the base you get the various religions. Sometimes they are close to each other, sometimes they are different and apart, but all of them have a tradition that some people have gone right to the top of the mountain and come down, and they have explained this, what they felt. Now,
explain enlightenment.
Explain what they felt when they go to the top of the mountain. When you go to the top of the mountain, it's so beautiful and peaceful, and it's a kind of an experience that cannot be explained in terms of words and concepts of the various religious groups. It has to be, you have to know it, you have to experience it to know what it is about. So at the bottom you get the ordinary Buddhist, Christians and so on, then you get the priests and monks and so on, and who sort of regulate the religion and carry on the traditions of those religions so that it preserved for a long time. But there's another level of people who sort of practice a form of meditation in the spiritual, at the spiritual level. And they are the monks, the swamis and sadhus, and that's a different level altogether. When they come to that, sometimes you find them in groups because it helps them get to discuss their experiences and find out what they do and so on. That's why the Sufis are different. And the Christians, the monks are there, and sometimes lay people can go and have retreats in the monasteries. But that is a different level.
So these are religious figures who are somehow, what, halfway up the mountain?
Halfway up the mountain. Then from there what happens is you have to lead a very quiet, peaceful life and not be involved in too many things, and then practice meditation, largely meditation, because that is the main practice. And gradually you go bit by bit to the top. Going to the top means just not climbing the mountain, but what happens is that gradually as you repeat the mantra and keeps on doing it regularly, your psyche and the body and everything changes, is energized, and you become a different person altogether. And I can give you details, but it's, I don't know what it's people say, but you get a sense of warmth, for instance, in your body, and you feel different. The psyche is changed and the spirit is changed, and it's not changed, it is sort of energized. And then when you go to the top, what happens is that suddenly everything is changed, everything is different. And that is enlightenment, and that's the height of the spiritual life. And enlightenment means that your self disappears and you become one with the divine in a sense, or the divine comes to you. And when you say divine, it is not God and so on, it is an experience that is beyond time, beyond space, beyond explanation, and that is called enlightenment.
And how do people who reach that share that with others? How do they express
that? Some of course they more or less like to stay on like that at that level, but there are some who come and explain it to those who are who have that kind of desire to go up and explain things, and they find out from them what their experiences are when they repeat the mantra, and then put them on the path to reach the top.
And is it something that anybody can do, anybody can learn?
Technically anyone can, but basically people are different due to various reasons. Partly genetic, partly traditional, partly your caste and clan and family, and your aspirations to become very important and to
that goes back to ego.
Rise to the top is the ego.
So the ego gets in the way.
That gets in the way.
I think in our earlier conversation we were having, you mentioned that when you get to the top, it's something that once you have it, you don't know what it is, and you expressed it in a certain way. Can you share that with us?
It is an experience that is difficult to explain to people, but you explain in terms of the concepts that are there in that tradition. And so for that reason it's sometimes difficult to explain, and it is said in the Zen tradition, those who know don't talk, those who talk don't know. Because when you explain things, you have to explain in terms of what that person knows. But the person who has that ultimate experience is not a person. His ego has disappeared, and the oneness, which I would call consciousness absolute, has emerged. And that concept of consciousness absolute is something that is always there, everywhere, and it's not time and space. It's something, it's an absolute reality which is there behind everything.
Now, you were born into a strong Christian Methodist family, raised as a good Christian, and I think your grandfather was a pastor, a minister.
Mm.
Now, having grown up in that environment, was it not considered unusual for you and even your family that you were interested in these mystical religions?
Well, you started with this practice that if you are Methodist or Anglican or Baptist, they are normally separate, they don't meet together. But when you join a group like the Student Christian Movement, you get all of them coming together. Buddhists, Baptists, Methodists, Anglicans, Catholics don't join, sometimes they come. And the Protestants are there. Then you try to contact the Catholics also to find out what they say and so on, and there have been links with the Catholic Church. But they don't mix very much with the other religions. But now with globalization and the knowledge of what's happening in other countries and in other traditions, there is the growth of what is called interfaith understanding. And you try to understand what other faiths are. And in understanding other faiths, is the basic similarity is not merely at the bottom, but when you come to the top, what the mystics have said, there is a very close link between what they say. Christian mystics, Buddhists, the people who have reached the top, the arhats, and the Hindu swamis and sadhus, they have the same experience, and they explain in different terms, in terms of the conceptual patterns of that particular tradition.
Who were the Christian mystics? They sound like a very interesting group.
Oh, there are several, of course. Mother Teresa and I can't often say, but there are Christian mystics. There are traditional books that have been written by Christian mystics. There is a Christian meditation group, which is a new one, which is near the Angel tube station, and they meet, and they have their practice is repetition of an ancient Aramaic word, Maranatha, 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 which means the Lord is, and they keep repeating that word. And now it's become a worldwide organization.
In London, Buddhist centres are almost synonymous, at least for me, with yoga, the practice of and teaching of yoga. What's the connection or the similarities between yoga and meditation?
Buddhist meditation has been sort of very neatly explained in Buddhist books, Buddhist traditional religious books. And there are three parts in Buddhist meditation. In Buddhist meditation, it's not called meditation, it's called bhavana.
Bhavana.
Bhavana. And you get, at the bottom level is sila. Sila is ethics and morals and so on. And you get metta, karuna, mudita, which are at the lowest level, the ethics, to make you. And they have forms of meditation called metta, karuna, metta, bhavana, mudita, bhavana, and so on. Then you get two other levels. One is samatha bhavana, the other is vipassana bhavana. Samatha bhavana is when you complete or go quite well up the path of sila, you sort of practice samatha bhavana, which is where you sit cross-legged and sort of meditate on what is called anapanasati, the intake of breath and outgoing of breath. And that is their basic practice, not the repetition of mantra so much, though you get it in Tibetan Buddhism, but in ordinary Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism, they practice that intake of breath, outgoing of breath. And they keep on doing that as a meditation practice, morning, evening. And that causes the same kind of change in a person as the mantras. You get this sense of warmth and the sense of peace and calm, serenity. And you come to a certain level, but your ego is still working there. And they go a step further in vipassana bhavana. Vipassana bhavana means inquiry. Vipassana, what is this? What is this? What is this? And that form of meditation, you sort of you start with trying to find out what you are. And they say meditation on the body. the meditation on your thoughts, on everything, your mind, and you sort of, the ego is all brought together in a person, but with Vipassana Bhavana, you tend to eliminate that unity of the ego. And when that happens, suddenly there is that other experience, which is Nibbana. Nibbana means nothingness, but ordinary Buddhists think of Nibbana as a kind of heaven where you go to. But in meditation, Nibbana means anatta. Anatta means, atta means soul or spirit or self. Anatta means no soul, no spirit, no self. And that is something that happens to you. You can't achieve it. If you say you achieve it, there's you achieving something. But it is something that happens at a time when things are ripe.
There seems to be this common theme of nothingness. You've mentioned it a few times in relation to the faiths that we've mentioned so far. And how do you explain nothingness?
Nothingness is that same experience where you go to the top of the mountain.
Yes.
And when a person gets there, there's no person. The self disappears, and you're sort of an experience that is very difficult to explain. But in terms of an explanation, what you can say is that is consciousness absolute. The ultimate divine, ultimate reality of the world. And there's no world also. The world and everything is that. Everything is. And consciousness, although it is not realized, is there in plants, in things, and everything. There's consciousness behind. But with the ego sets in, or when plants grow and start getting sustenance from the world, from the earth, and so on, and then of course as a kind of an ego in the vegetative world. But they don't realize, they don't have mental faculties or anything like that. But that basically it is that when you sort of eliminate that, or when that is lost, you can't eliminate it, it's lost to mind. And that means your ego disappears. When the ego disappears, you just go about the world as if nothing exists. And you react as you normally have, and then you forget about all that. And it is you're a different person entirely. Your whole body is energized, changed, and everything is sort of different.
As a professor, you wrote volumes of books on the ancient Ceylon institutions, and also you were teaching Indian history. Through that, I understand you discovered obviously a background to Hinduism. Can you tell us about that journey? What did you discover?
If you want to study the history of a country, you have to study the religious background of that country. If you want to study about British and European history, British history, you must know about Anglican Church and how it is. If you want to do European history, you certainly must know the Catholic background and know about the Catholic Church and so on. If you want to know about Middle Eastern history, you must learn about Islam. If you want to learn Indian history, you must learn the background Indian history. And I studied, read a lot about Hinduism from that point of view. I read about the ancient Hindu scriptures like the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads. And Puranas are the ancient works on history, but the others were on Hinduism. And Hinduism is more widespread, broad than Buddhism or Islam, because you get various swamis and sadhus who carry on the tradition in various parts of India.
Okay. And can you tell us about the practice of meditation in Hinduism?
In Hinduism, there are various forms of meditation which people practice. Mantra, of course, is one of the most common practices in meditation in Hinduism. But you get, of course, various... I know of a person, and I belong to a small group called the Ramana Maharshi Foundation. And Ramana Maharshi is a saint who lived till quite recently in South India. And he sort of formed a tradition. He's what is called Atma-Vichara, self-inquiry. And people who went to him, they practiced that. And they still practice that. And these groups practice that form of meditation. Self-inquiry is like Vipassana Bhavana in Hinduism.
And Atma in Buddhism, yeah. And Atma is soul.
Atma is the soul or the spirit or the ego.
So the discovery.
That's the identity of the oneness. Oneness in meaning self. And in Christians, of course, don't know very much about it, but in the Bible you get the story that Jesus said, except you become as little children, ye cannot enter the kingdom of God. And becoming little children means little children run about and they have no identity of self. But when children start saying, give this to me, I must get that, I must do this, then the ego comes in. And then it's different. So to get to the kingdom of God, you must eliminate that self.
Finally, Professor Lakshman, you have managed to keep yourself very healthy, and certainly you look much younger than you actually are. Has meditation been part of that secret of youth?
Well, if you practice meditation, one of the things that happen is that your breathing pattern changes and you breathe less and less, less and less. In deep meditation, you hardly breathe. And when that happens, your aging process is gradually slowed down and your brain pattern changes so that you get into states of ecstasy or bliss or samadhi. So you have to sort of, not that you practice giving up breathing, but breathing gradually stops when you do your meditation. The other thing is, once you start meditation, the form of the food you take, the quantity of food you take has to become less and less and less. Because in quiet meditation, when you sit quiet, you don't need that much energy. There's less energy that you prepare. So to have less energy, you eat less and less food.
And we often hear of these swamis or gurus in the mountains. And
swamis and gurus who go to the mountains, they go to the
mountains. Living off nothing, just the elements.
There's less and less food there and they hardly eat anything except what people bring from time to time. And the higher you go, there's less oxygen in the air. And so that helps. And also the atmosphere is peaceful and calm. You don't have the hassle of life, which you have to face when you're with the other people down at the bottom. People who live a common life here down among the people, they of course have to deal with the hassle of life. But you do get, of course, places where there's peace and calm. And there are some churches, some viharas, monasteries, where you get that sense of peace and calm, where people do get together for prayers and meditation, and there's an element of peace in those areas, and the aura is different in those areas.
Thank you very much, Professor Lakshman, for joining us today. It's been fascinating talking to you. Well, you've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. If you'd like to find out more, we're on the web at www.definingmoment.eu. Thank you for watching, and we wish you all the best.